And the time has come for me to finally put off the series that I've been putting off from doing for a couple months now. It's finally the Chucky series. So first off, I was planning to do this earlier, like I said, a couple months ago, but that was around the time when I was kind of switching up on what I wanted to do regarding reviews. So I skipped over this and was planning to come back to it later. So I figured out what I'm going to do, so now we can finally get into it. So, started off, my history with the series is I was aware of the first movie. I saw clips of it, but I never watched it in its entirety until way later. And then I was also aware of the series, but I saw clips of the first movie, and then the next Chucky movie that I saw being advertised was Curse. And it was when I was in the supermarket, and back when like Redbox was still huge and it was still everywhere. I mean, it still kind of is to this day, but it's kind of died down a little bit. But I saw the cover for Curse of Chucky, and I'm like, that guy looks familiar. Why does that doll look familiar to me? And then I went back to seeing the first Child's Play. I'm like, oh, because it's the same. And then when I looked up later on, I found out there's an entire series of it, and that Curse was only the sixth movie. Yes, the sixth movie. I have some notes here, like I do with all my series reviews, because I'm not good at memory. So it's the sixth movie. So I'm like, oh, so there's 4 other movies that I haven't noticed or seen. So then when I started getting older and wanted to watch more movies and watch entire series, I was like, all right, now I'm going to go on to doing Chucky. So I started with the first movie and then went as it went forward. So that's kind of my history with the series. So first off, we start in 1988 with Child's Play.
Everyone has a birthday they'll always remember.
Can we open my presents now, Mommy? A good guy! I knew it! I'm Chucky.
He's something, isn't he?
This is Andy's.
Time for bed, Andy.
Good night, baby.
Good night, Aunt Maggie. Good night, Chucky.
Or lives to tell it. There's nothing nice about murder. And there's nothing innocent about Child's Play.
So this movie was directed by Tom Holland. No, not Spider-Man. Tom Holland has directed like Fright Night, which is super fun, Thinner, which is kind of stupid, and then he wrote Psycho 2. He didn't direct it, but he wrote it. Which, we don't need to get into it. But I think Holland is a fine director. You know, like I said, I enjoy Fright Night. Thinner, just I don't know what that was. That's honestly one of Stephen King's stories where I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good on not seeing an adaptation of that. But we got one anyway. But this entire series was written by one guy named Don Mancini, who Don Mancini writes all of them and takes over directing for Seed, and then does Curse, and then Cult, and then now did the new Chucky series, which the TV show is not going to be part of this review. This is just going to be the movies. The show will have its own review later on when I eventually watch it. I mean, I was going to watch it, and I'm like, I got other stuff to either watch or do, or then it just slipped away from me. So I'm hoping to get that done as soon as I can. My plan is to do it before season 2 comes out, but we'll see, because season 2 comes out next month, or October when you're listening to this. So, I don't know, but I'll try to get on that. Because I've heard it's really good. So, the first movie, it's about this guy named Charles, or Chucky. His nickname is Chucky. He's on the run from a cop. He hides out in a toy store. He gets shot and is fatally wounded and is about to die before he transfers his soul into a Chucky doll, or into a good guy doll, as they're called. And then later on, it's a mother and her child. The mother is a single mom, like trying really hard to raise her kid, but at the same time trying to keep her job and trying to make money. And her son really wants a Chucky doll for Christmas. This is technically a Christmas movie. Technically. Which is kind of weird, because not a lot of people think about that this movie is set around Christmas. And so she buys a Chucky doll from a homeless man outside of her work, but that's the Chucky doll that has Ray Charles' soul in it. So the first movie, you don't really get a whole lot of Chucky moving around. You see the doll like move by itself, and it's in the forefront too, so that's quite cool. But because they didn't really have a whole lot of money, you don't really get a whole lot of him moving, a lot of him talking. So the first half of the movie, it's kind of like, oh, he's in the background, or oh, he's just ran by, but you didn't really see him. But then it's once the second act starts coming to a close and starts going into the third act, where he really pops out and is moving around. And when it starts happening that way, I think without Brad Dourif's voice, who voices Chucky in all of these movies, except for the reboot, but I'll get to that later. I think when Chucky's moving around, especially in the first movie, it's a bit wonky, very kind of animatronic-like, and that's also because of the money. I think over the series, when he starts becoming the main person or the main character, when they start giving them more money, it's like, okay, now we can show him what he can really do. And I think it got better over time. But with this one, it's not bad. The first movie, it's not bad at all. It's more of a thriller than a straight up horror slasher film. To me, it's the one that started it all. I think it's got pretty good suspense. I think the history of, it sets it up really quickly. Like, oh yeah, he just was about to die, so he just transferred soul, and boom, there you go. And then as the series goes on, it starts to reveal more of his past, and I think it got better in that context. So I think overall this movie I liked. I give it a great, because it's the one that started it all. There is some minor problems that I have with it. Like I said, previously, like, I don't think if you had Brad Dourif's voice over Chucky, I think it wouldn't have worked. Because just him moving around, it's very much kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese animatronic in some shots, but they do blend it kind of well with real people. So I like that. But Brad Dourif is awesome. He's awesome as Chucky. So I like that quite a bit. So that's why it gets great. Then it took him a little bit, but then 2 years later, in 1990, we got Child's Play 2.
Sorry, Jack. Chucky's back.
Child's Play 2.
Peekaboo.
He's the original. He'll take your breath away. This fall, Chucky rules.
Did you miss me, Andy? I sure missed you.
Child's Play 2. Keep an eye out for it.
Now this one, I'll say this: it's not as good as the first, but we get to see more of Chucky talking. We get to see him more moving, and he's more fluid now with his movements. Even though most of the time it's playing a lot like the first movie, like it's in the dark. But, you know, from some of the shots of him in the foreground and the light, they work quite bit. They work really well, and I did like that. And more of Brad Dourif talking. That's just awesome. So yeah, this movie takes place, I think they said 2 years later after the events of the first movie. The kid now named Andy, he gets moved to a foster home because his mother got evicted because a killer doll was after. You think that's going to be crazy. So he ends up moving in a foster home, and then Chucky comes back because they reopen the toy factory, and he's resurrected, and yeah, he comes back. So this one was directed by John Lafia, if I'm saying his name right, who the only two things I know from him was the movie Man's Best Friend, which was kind of like a knockoff Cujo, and did some episodes of Freddy's Nightmares, which was a Nightmare on Elm Street series they did, and that's pretty much all I know him from. I think he probably did a lot of TV after this. So yeah, I don't know. Those are really only two things I know him from. But I think two is a good movie. It's not as good as the first, but you get more. You get a bigger budget in this one, so you get to see Chucky moving more. You get to hear him talk more. The gore also steps up pretty well through the course of the series. Like in the first movie, they show a little bit of blood, but it's kind of all implied. This one, it shows a little bit more, and then as the series goes on, especially when you get to the movies named after Chucky, they start getting more and more violent, which is cool. But this one is just it's very middle of the road. I mean, Chucky's whole plan is to he only planned on being in the doll for a little bit before he finds another host and can live on that way. But unfortunately, because he's been in the doll for so long, that isn't the case. So he can't transfer his soul into Andy, which was kind of the premise of the first movie, where he's trying to transfer his soul into Andy. Almost does, but you know, it's a slasher movie. The slashers are going to lose. But in this one, when he's trying it, it's like, oh, it's not working because you were already in the doll for too long. That's now kind of your permanent. That's your permanent body, basically. So it's like, well, now he's stuck as this. So there we go. Like I said, this one's just kind of middle of the road. I both liked it and didn't like it at the same time. The climax was very long. Like it was like, I don't know if they were trying to pull something like what Scream did, where the entire third act is in the house and it's like 30 minutes. It's like a 30-minute climax. I don't know if that's what they were trying with this one, but it's just, the pacing is a bit off. It's a bit slow. So you're kind of like, geez, this is going on forever. So, but I think overall, you know, it's a good sequel to the first movie. You know, it stays in canon. Actually, this entire series stays in canon, which is one of the rare ones. because even in the newer films, they then reference stuff back in the earlier movies, and it's like, oh, see, like Nightmare didn't do that, Halloween really didn't do that, Friday 13th never did that, unless you go with 1, 2, 3, 4. But Chucky series, I think, is pretty good on the continuity, and me being an absolute like picker when it comes to that kind of stuff, like I nitpick at that stuff. I go like, hey, you didn't reference this when this happened, or whatever the case may be. But it really bugs me a lot about continuity. But I think this series does it pretty well. So this movie gets average. It's an average because there's some parts I liked, some parts I didn't like. So it's middle of the road, but it is a pretty good sequel, so it gets average. Then apparently that made tons of money and got pretty good reviews, I guess. So then 1 year later, in 91, we got Child's Play 3.
Left, right, left.
Welcome to Hell on Earth.
You are without a doubt the most pathetic thing I have ever seen.
Strict discipline.
Does this look like a gun to you, Barkley? It's a rifle. Next.
Rigid dress codes.
Presto, you're bald. Get those weapons in the air. I want to see them high.
And grueling drills. It couldn't possibly get any worse.
Wrong again, wimp.
Chucky's back. Child's Play 3. Look who's stalking.
A haircut ain't regulation, soldier. Regulate this.
Now this one takes place, I think they said about like 10 years later. He's all grown up, and he's in, I think they said his like 20s or something like that. He gets sent off to a military school. And Chucky comes back and tracks him down there, but then is like, oh, wait, I found this other kid that I revealed my secret to. And I'm going to go to this kid now. So now Andy has to stop Chucky from going into the body of another kid. But he's also in a military school, so other stuff will happen. This is one of the weaker films in the series for me. It's not the weakest for me. I'll save that later. But so this one had a lot of the same problems that I have with 2, but this one I think had more problems. Like this military school that he goes to, there's a character that loves to give everyone haircuts. Like he's so obsessed with it. Like he's like the Sweeney Todd for haircuts. Like he's so like, I mean, besides with Sweeney Todd, but with this, it's like he's so obsessed with cutting people's hair. It's like an addiction for him, and it was just a bit weird. It was very weird, and then especially how he gets killed was even weirder. I'm like, wait, what? Like, how does that? Okay, whatever. This is also the movie where they kind of start going more into the comedy element in here, and I'm just gonna say this right now. Some of the comedy in this series doesn't really work all that well for me, but that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I could see how it's funny for some people, but to me, it's not. I mean, and I love like dark comedies, like Cabin in the Woods or the Evil Dead series or Ready or Not. I like dark comedies, but with this, I think it's just kind of like, it's okay, I guess. But with this one is just kind of dull. The military school, this made no sense to me. They have live rounds of ammo sitting right next to the paint darts, like right next. It's like that cutaway in Family Guy where Brian goes and sees the acupuncturist, and he's sticking the needles in him, and then he notices 2 boxes, and it's like, you really should have those. Should you have those boxes next to each other? And it was like poison needles and just needles. It's like, why? What do they say? We're done here. It's kind of like that. It's like, why would you have those 2 sitting right next to each other? You can easily get it confused, and it's like, that's just stupid. And this is kind of on that level. It's like Chucky walks in the door and sees, like, it was like a box that was real ammo and paint darts. And it's like, which one should we use to teach these kids how to take people down, how to take people down? Nah, let's just have the real ammo just in case. Like, I understand if because it's a military school and something may happen where they maybe have to be called in during school. I get that, but why would you have it sitting right next to each other? That just made no sense to me. It would have made more sense if still would have been stupid, but it would have made more sense if like the paint darts were on the ground or the bullets were on like top of a shelf. At least they were spread out, but no, they were sitting right next to each other. And I'm just like, oh my God, you guys just are stupid. So this one's directed by Jack Bender, who did a lot of TV stuff. He directed episodes of Lost, of Alias, Game of Thrones, like did a lot of TV stuff. And a lot of the lighting in this movie is very TV-like. That's also one other thing with like the Halloween and Friday the 13th series is that none of the movies look the same with their lighting effects. Like it's all like some of them look movie quality while others look like TV movies. And that's because some of the directors in those series also did TV stuff when they didn't really have another movie under the belt. But for this, a lot of, he had some movie directors and then some TV directors. And then when Don Mancini took over for Seed, these are the only movies he's directed. He's directed no other movies. But I think 3, it gets an average because it's not a fine. It's just kind of, I mean, you do get more violence in this movie, which is cool. You did get more Brad Dourif talking, which is cool. You did get more of Chucky moving, which is cool. But just the way they did it was just kind of dull. It was like, okay, I see what you're going for, but I don't know. I didn't really care for it. So it gets an average, but it's still one of the weaker films in the series for me. Then we get a long break of the movies. We get a 7-year break. They didn't really know what to do next, so they, in 1998, they went off to do Bride of Chucky.
Well, hello, Dolly.
Chucky's back. But this time, there's more to fear. Because this time, he's got a playmate of his own. Bride of Chucky.
Now, Bride of Chucky is directed by Ronny Yu, who did The Bride with White Hair, did a lot of Asian films, and also did Freddy vs. Jason, which I'll say this right now, it's but when you finally get to the Freddy vs. Jason scenes, they're awesome. But I'll when I eventually do the Friday the 13th series, I'll talk about it more then. But for right now, this is when they started going more horror comedy. So in this, they introduce Tiffany, who's played by Jennifer Tilly, who I like quite a bit. And with this one, she finds Chucky basically dismembered from part 3, and finds her, and she reads Voodoo for Dummies, which I laughed at that. I thought that was kind of funny. It I don't know, that was just one of the it caught me off guard, and just kind of how funny and kind of clever that was. So she resurrects him. He then kills her and then transfers her soul into a female doll. So then both of them go and wreak havoc. The problem that I have with this movie is that a lot of the times when they're trying to be funny, it's not really blending well with what they're doing, and the human characters are still in it too much. They're in it too much. Even though you're now in Bride of Chucky. So it's like, okay, so Chucky is the main star in the movies from now on. But unfortunately with this, he's not really. It's kind of more like Running Away from Dolls featuring Chucky. It's kind of like that, which, was very disappointing to me. The gore, they step up quite a bit in this, which, is awesome. You get more of Dourif talking, you get more Chucky moving, and even when both Chucky and Tiffany are interacting, it's kind of cool. It's you can tell the animatronic and effects have definitely grown over the past 10 years since the first movie. So it very much stepped up in quality, which I like. There's some scenes that they just go like, screw it, let's see if we can do this. Like they have a sex scene in here, and it's not like Team America World Police, where it's just over the top and like they're trying to just be absurd as much as they can because it's Trey Parker and Matt Stone, creators of South Park. Let's just do it and see if we can get it past the censors. This one, it's more like, okay, we're doing it this way, which works. It's absurd. It's over the top, but it knows it is, and it's kind of funny. But then towards the third act, it starts getting a little bit slow, but overall, I think this is one of the better movies in the series, but it gets average. It felt a lot like 2 to me, where 2, there was stuff I liked, stuff that I didn't like, but overall, I think I enjoyed it. I would definitely watch it again. The ones that I don't think I would watch again are so far maybe the third one, because it was just kind of like, all right, just see how we go with this, and just wait, because I'll talk about another one that I'll probably not rewatch again. But so it gets average. So I think overall it's a good movie. Then we get another break in the movies. Then finally in 2004, we got Seed of Chucky.
Claudia, told you not to leave your toys lying about. Good God, you are hideous.
What the hell is going on in here?
She came on to me.
No wonder her career's in trouble.
Seed of Chucky.
That's my boy.
Oh, God bless the little people.
Now here is what I've been saying. Just wait, because this one to me is the weakest. This is, and sometimes it kind of dips into the worst. So this one, it was 2004, so it was six years later. This is also when Don Mancini takes over for directing. And I got a lot of problems with this. The good off the bat, the way that both Chucky and Tiffany look in this, to me, is the definitive version. This is, to me, what they, every time when I hear their names, this is the version that I think of. But in this, it also steps up the gore a lot. Some of it's kind of CGI, especially like the first couple kills. But then when you start like when Tiffany goes on a rampage on someone, woo boy, that was just ouch. That's gonna leave a mark. I'm gonna guess they're not gonna make it. If you've seen the kill, you know what I'm talking about. But yeesh. So I liked that they stepped up the gore quite a bit in the movie. The problems that I have is this is the one where they're just like, you know what, screw it. Let's just do a comedy. Let's do like a comedy movie, but just throw in all these bloody kills. There's really no horror to it. And it's kind of weak to me. It's very weak to me. One of the other not absurd, but just things they did was Jennifer Tilly not only voices Tiffany in the movie, but she also plays herself in the movie. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of like a step back and make fun of yourself kind of thing. And I like how they did that. But it's just this movie kind of sucked. It wasn't really good to me. They introduce Chucky and Tiffany's kid or kids. It was Glenn and Glenda, where I liked what they were going with it. So there is that, but I don't know. Like I said, this one was just kind of just going like, yeah, we're just going to throw a lot of like comedy at you and see if it sticks. And some of it does, but to me, it just wasn't funny. But the thing that was kind of watchable was watching Chucky and Tiffany's banter back and forth, because they were just kind of funny together. And then also the kills too. The kills were kind of cool too. And also one thing that I did find kind of funny was somehow their kid can talk Chinese because they have a made in China printed on them, and they think it's a birthmark. And I was like, okay, that is kind of funny. So I found that kind of amusing. But this movie just overall was just very weak. So it gets a fine. The only thing that keeps it from being terrible was the gore, even though it was a bit too like CGI in some areas. And some of the dialogue, where it was just them just talking back and forth. And I was like, okay, cool. So, this gets fine. Then we get another break in the movies, because this movie did not really do very well. This was actually the last movie in the series that went to theaters. So they really didn't know what to do after this. They were supposed to do another movie, because then it would have been a trilogy. It would have been Bride, and then Seed, and then another movie. And then that would have been a trilogy. So they really didn't know what to do. So in 2013, they came back and did Curse of Chucky.
Who's it from?
It doesn't say.
You found him.
Chucky's my friend till the end. Hey, wanna play?
Can't we sleep in with you tonight?
It's only a storm. Good night, baby. Sweet dreams.
Don't forget Chucky.
It's a doll. What's the worst that can happen, huh?
It's time to play.
This one might be my favorite because they don't do the comedy anymore. They go back to just straight up horror. Like, especially with the way the movie's lit, very dark and like minimal light, and that when Chucky attacks, it's either scary, or when he does something that then leads up to something, it's like, oh, well, that's messed up. So I liked what they did with this. Then, because when I saw the beginning of the movie, and I'm like, Chucky looks different. That's a bit weird. So I thought it was a remake. I thought it was a reboot. I didn't know what was happening. Then the twist comes out. He looks that way because it takes place after Seed. And I was like, oh, okay, I like that. And they explain what happened before he ran into the toy store in the beginning of the first movie. He did something before that then happens to the main character in this, who's I think name was Nika, who's actually played by Fiona Dourif, Brad Dourif's daughter. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of cool. But she's in a wheelchair. And Chucky did something before, like literally right before the beginning of the first movie that affected her. And it's like, oh, that is screwed up. And that's nice continuity flowing through the series. And I'm like, I very much appreciate that. So, and also the kills too. The kills were really cool in this one too. They kind of go more practical with this one, which I always love practical effects. I'll take practical effects over CGI any day. Yeah, I'd rather have a bad practical effect than a bad CGI effect. Oh, I would much rather take that. So I liked this movie. I honestly did. It went back to just being straight up horror, or as I called it in the beginning, thriller. But then it was trying to go more horror. This one does it. This one just is like straight up horror. He's still kind of cracking jokes a little bit, but it was kind of, to me, it felt the way I think Freddy Krueger should have just stayed. Like in the first 3 Nightmare on Elm Street movies, where, yeah, he was cracking jokes, but he was angry. Where after that, he was just being a comedian. With this, he's being angry and trying to taunt with people. That's how he was, which I like. So I like this one quite a bit. I like this one better than the first movie. So it gets great. But yeah, this one I think is my favorite in the series. So there you go. Then we get a 4-year break, and I also like how they weren't doing like a yearly release like they did with 2, and then the next year they did 3. Or yeah, from first one it was 2 years, and then when they did the second one it was 1 year, and then yeah, you get my point. Hopefully, I like how this weren't yearly releases, where they actually took their time and wrote out stuff. I like that. So in 2017 we got another one, Cult of Chucky.
Nika, the murders were real.
Chucky never was.
That's right. He was a fantasy, a delusion.
Are you feeling better now?
I don't blame you for being afraid. I was very ill.
Chucky told me. He's coming for you.
It's important that we all explore it together as a group. I think I have something that will help.
Whoa.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
First, he'll kill each and every one of you in the most horrible ways you can imagine. And then he'll kill me too.
Come to mommy.
Are you afraid of the truth?
Terrified. You should be too.
Night night. And they call me sick?
Wait a minute, there's two of them?
He'll kill us all!
A true classic never goes out of style.
Now this one, very different tone than not very tone, lighting and location, where Curse was very dark. This one is all brightly lit and it's snowy, so you get like the white backgrounds. Like, so in this one, the character from Curse, Nika, she ends up getting sent to a penitentiary because she's convicted of murders, even though she didn't commit them. But then at the beginning of the movie, she is convinced herself that she actually did. But once Chucky enters the picture again, she starts rethinking everything. Like, no, I actually didn't do this. But as she doesn't know, that there's actually more than meets the eye. There's not just one Chucky, but there's multiple. So, oh boy. And this one, and at the end of Curse, there's a post-credit scene where a package is delivered to a guy. And the guy is Andy from the original, who's played by the same actor, now all grown up. And so he takes the package and sets it down, and then out pops Chucky, and then Chucky's like, "Hi, I got you." Oh, and he pulls out a gun and shoots him. So then he has a severed Chucky head, chained down on a wooden board, but he's still alive. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. I like that. So he's back in this, which is awesome. And you see a lot of familiar faces like Alex Vincent, who's the actor who plays Andy. He's back in this. Jennifer Tilly's back in this, not only playing Tiffany, but playing herself. So it's very cool. I liked where they did with the series, and what the thing they did at the end of Seed, where I'm like, okay, I get that. I get it. They didn't bring it in here, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. I got to remember that. And they did a little joke, which I won't say here because then I don't want to fully spoil everything. But I found it kind of funny. So this one I liked quite a bit. I didn't like it as much as Curse, but I thought it was still really, really good. The kills, yes, it was mostly practical, but there's also some they mixed up with CGI. But the way they did the kills too was like, oh wow, okay, that was really cool. And also, the thing is that once with Curse and Cult, the cinematography was really good. Like, especially with what they did with kills, I thought like, wow, that was really good. So this one, the way it ends is very like, oh, well, that sucks. Where are we going to go from here? And they bring back Andy's foster sister from the second movie, who's played by the same actress. She pops right back up at the end. And a lot of people were going, what's going to happen next? Like, what are we going to do? And the thing was, Curse was supposed to set up another trilogy. It was going to be Curse and then Cult and then a third movie. Because the way this ended felt very much kind of like The Empire Strikes Back, where it was like, oh, the bad win, and what's going to happen next? What's going to happen in the third movie? And it just gave you that, like, all right, the bad wins, the good is now is now down a bit, but hopefully in the third movie they can rise back up and win. What's going to happen? Then Orion Pictures showed up and got greedy. So I've heard different stories with this. I've heard one that Orion saw that Chucky was becoming popular again and they wanted to cash in on the popularity. So they decided to greenlight a reboot because they still had the rights to the first movie. I heard one that the director of the original, Tom Holland, not Spider-Man again, he was the one that orchestrated it. And Don Mancini was just like, no, I'm still working on it. Don't do this. And they're like, well, too bad. We're going to do it anyway. So in 2019, we got Child's Play, the reboot.
Chucky?
Okay, now here's where stuff's gonna happen. I'll say the good off the bat. Mark Hamill's portrayal as Chucky, I liked. It felt very much like he was trying to voice Joker, but in a more kiddie fashion. Not really like he did in the Arkham games or in even Batman the Animated Series, where he was just being really psychotic. In this, he's trying to be kind of like a Joker, but for little kids, maybe. Like he like kind of like that clown at like birthday at like kids parties where it's an adult dressed up as a clown and he's trying to be like, hey kids, like kind of like all cheery and happy, but then once the kids go away he's like, God, I hate my job. Like all clowns feel or should feel. That's why it killed the clown community, which is one of the best things that movie did. It's just me. But this one, it felt very forced. They changed quite a bit of stuff, like good guys. They changed to kitty dolls, which is fine. I don't care about that. But the way Chucky looks just downright creepy. He honestly looked like those dolls from like the 70s and 80s, especially like the original Poltergeist, that clown doll. That still gives me the chills today and actually caused trauma back when I was a kid. Now I've gotten over it, but it's still just freaky looking. And I'm like, what kid would ever want that? This is on that same level. I'm like, what kid would want that? And I'm like, I don't get that. I don't get it. He looks way too like plastic, which I get it. It's a doll. I get it. But the way it just looked, it just didn't look right. But the big thing that I was like, no, why did you do that? They took out the supernatural element and made it more artificial intelligence gone wrong. And I'm like, they've done that so many times in movies. It's kind of become a genre in itself. AI gone wrong in movies. I mean, it's just, I don't know. But the things that the kitty doll was able to do, it felt very much kind of like giving your kid too much power. Like, oh, your kitty doll, and it hooks up to Bluetooth, it can turn up or down the thermostat. I'm like, why would I want it to do that? Oh, it can do this. Why would I want it? No. Why would I want that to happen? oh, it can control other electronics. No, I don't want that. So it just got ridiculous to the amount of degree that the kitty doll can do. It got really stupid. I will say this. Adri Plaza, I thought was pretty good. That she's a great actress. Here's the problem I had with Andy. The kid actor, way too old to have a doll. And when I saw the trailer, I'm just like, what are you, like 13? Like, why do you have a doll? Like, why would you want that at 13? Like, okay, like when you're 13, you want to steal your parents' debit card and just buy the latest Call of Duty. Like, why would you want a doll? But what's funny is that in the movie, when he gets it, he's like, why would I want this? I'm like, thank you. Okay, you're saying it. Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. It's like a 40-year-old man having a Beanie Babies collection. It's kind of like, what? Okay, I don't know why you would have that, but okay. So, yeah, I think them removing the supernatural element, I understand they want to do something different, but they kind of went like, hey, let's just turn it into the artificial intelligence gone wrong. And unfortunately, that's been done so many times in horror movies, not just horror movies, but like sci-fi movies. I mean, Stanley Kubrick did in the 60s. So that's how old this thing has become. And, you know, it's another thing too, is that there's a lot of movie. I mean, yeah, they're basically like, technology is bad. It can be very dangerous. And I'm like, yeah. And people still haven't learned that. And yet Stanley Kubrick did in the 60s. And yet we're having robots that can basically take over humanity. And it's like, what else will we have to do? But that's a different topic all by itself. But back to this. I think this felt very forced. It felt very much for the money. Like I said, the good, Mark Hamill's portrayal as Chucky, I liked. Adri Plaza, I thought was good. Even like some of the kid actors too. I like how it became like Andy, like in the original, it was just Andy and he really didn't have any friends. In this, he does have friends and they all kind of band together. It felt very like Stranger Things in a way, which I've seen a lot of movies from when Stranger Things premiered, and a lot of them have kind of done that same thing where it's just like, we're going to throw a bunch of kids in here and just do what Stranger Things did, but not make it as good as they did it. Okay, great. Like, I see what you're doing, but it's not working. So this felt very forced, kind of very much for the money. Even, you know, the kills aren't bad. It's just, there's nothing special about them. It's just kind of like, okay, like, whatever. So this gets fine. And the things that I liked is what's keeping it from being terrible. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting to see how they changed everything, but the way they did it was just very lazy. Like, oh, we clearly don't care. The director of this is Lars Klevberg, who did two other Polaroid and The Wall, which I've never even heard of. So I don't know. So yeah, this just gets fine. So that is the Chucky series. I'll say this. My favorite one, it's Curse. My least favorite is Seed of Chucky. I would say Curse, then Cult, then the first movie, then Bride of Chucky, then Child's Play 2, then Child's Play 3, then the reboot, and then Seed of Chucky. That's my favorite. That's my best to worst in this series for me. Like I said, beginning of this, that eventually I'll watch the Chucky series, but that'll have its own reviews later on when I actually get and just sit down and just watch them. But I need to try harder. And I never had a doll to play with when I was a kid. And after seeing like this or Poltergeist or even Stuart Gordon's dolls from back in the 80s, where it was just a whole bunch of dolls, I'm just like, yeah, I'm good. I don't understand why kids like this stuff, because kids are messed up somehow. And, horror movies show that. So, yay.